Penguin Random House Audio presents God Didn't Make Us to Hate Us. 40 Devotions to Liberate Your Faith from Fear and Reconnect with Joy. This is the author, Reverend Lizzie Mcmanus-Dail. For Jonathan, who introduced himself to me standing by the baptismal font with only an inkling of what this might foreshadow. And for the beloved babes of God who trusted me enough to ask the unspeakable questions, and for everyone brave enough to believe that God can be bigger than the boxes we were sold. This is my love letter to you. Thank you for persisting. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Introduction. The air was thick with that airplane hum, a sound that muffles and feels overbright all at once. My mother had given me the window seat. I pressed my nose against the glass, the butter-yellow clouds outside stretching to the horizon. I was in heaven. I wanted to see the angels. I think I was maybe 5 years old. It wasn't my first time on a plane, but it is the time I remember as my first, likely in one of the many cross-country moves that creased my early childhood. The priest had told us heaven was full of fluffy white clouds and angels singing and playing harps. Or maybe it was my Sunday school teacher who said that. Or a television program. Somewhere in my Catholic upbringing, the only consistent thread in my early days, someone had told me there were angels way up here in the sky. And I was determined to see them. But all I saw for miles and miles was nothing but butter-yellow clouds. It felt like I waited for hours. Now that I'm a mother to a toddler, I suspect it lasted 5 minutes. But it ended the same way it always seems to end with toddlers, with a question. Mommy, why can't I see the angels? I remember my mom chuckled. Exhaustion and amusement bubbling up as she explained we weren't in heaven exactly. Heaven was not a place we could fly to. But isn't it beautiful all the same? She asked. I mean, it was beautiful, but it was not heaven. This was my first deconstruction, I suppose, my first disillusionment. It was the first time something I had been told was true of God turned out to be not necessarily false, but more complex than what I had thought or had been taught. It was a little soul-crushing, if I'm honest, to discover that something I had imagined to be so simple and pure was actually made up of atoms and hydrogen rather than perfectly pearly gates. Deconstruction is a word that is increasingly being used by a movement of people questioning the rigid religious beliefs that were handed to them. Unraveling what is useful and true from what is deceptive and exploitative. I want to be careful to lay no claim to defining the term for all people. But for me, this moment was the first of many in which what I thought was the right and faithful way to look for God was turned on its head. It was a moment wherein I felt lied to. And while I doubt the priests and teachers who told me angels lived in the clouds were consciously trying to deceive a little girl, that didn't stop this little girl from grieving her ticket to heaven. Many of the deconstruction moments that have come after that have been hard, and with much higher stakes than heaven's location. But none have been as crushing to my innocent hope as when I was 5 and learned I could not spend a journey between Raleigh and Los Angeles listening to the heavenly hosts on their cloudy thrones. Since then, I have grown, left, and re-found the church, been ordained an Episcopal priest, and become a mother. I have tasted the bitter and beautiful waters of a baptism that keeps me yoked to a God and an institution that has broken my heart 1,000,000 times. I have heard the church tell me I was not good enough, I was not wanted, I was crazy, I was fundamentally corrupt. And I have watched the church stand by in the face of horrific abuse. And yet, to quote Martin Luther, one of the most famous and famously problematic people ever to deconstruct his faith, here I stand. I can do no other. Because faith is still beautiful, all the same. And I know this because somehow in those early days of hearing stories about angels and looking for them in clouds and meeting them in forever the most unexpected places, I came to know something fundamental about God and God's character that no disillusioning of the church could thieve from me. God did not make us to hate us. God did not dream up the color yellow and craft the scientific art of making butter from milk and whimsically birth cumulus clouds just to disdain a little girl who misunderstood the cosmic structure. God did not count the hairs on our heads or the stars that would hang in the sky over billions of years just to resentfully accept desperate people begging to be spared from brutal torment. I know this because maybe heaven isn't a pit stop between Raleigh and LA, but heaven is all around us, breaking in and barreling down walls and peeping up like dandelions in the asphalt. God would not be so creative and wily and beautiful all at the same time if God's desire was punishment. Maybe this belief is ego. Maybe it is a gift from the Spirit. Maybe it is both. But this abiding sense of God's desire for all of us has been a shield for me that I now want to extend to you. I want to lay it out as an invitation and an answer to the thousands of questions I get online as a priest that ask, why does God hate me so much? I also really believe that there is great potential in being disillusioned, painful as it may be to suddenly and irrevocably see the world so differently. To paraphrase my friend Erin Lane, is not being disillusioned, being set free from our illusions, the point of faith? Isn't there actually like a super famous story in the Bible about scales falling from a faithful, God-fearing, earnest man's eyes as the God he had always worshipped stepped in with a real flourish and said, "You are looking for me in all the wrong places, and in so doing, you are hurting me and my people." Spoiler alert, there is. Acts 9, the calling of St. Paul, author of about half the New Testament. Over and over throughout Christian history, scales have fallen from our collective eyes, and we, the faithful and the skeptical, have deconstructed. Sometimes this was called Reformation. Sometimes this was called schism. Sometimes this was called sin. It's a mixed bag, this millennia-long endeavor of the great group project that is Christianity. But I remain convinced of the power inlaid in the falling of the scales from our eyes as we behold a brutal new truth hard fought for. We might be uncertain what can be won, worried it won't be worth it. But what might happen if we were all willing to let this truth set us free? Because all bad theology, in my humble opinion, keeps us chained in systems of oppression. All bad theology has its root in thinking God hates us. Homophobia and transphobia, racism and misogyny, ableism and classism all stem from an anxiety created by the idea that God hates us and that we must repair this breach by receiving the forgiveness he offers begrudgingly. This theology fundamentally communicates you are not safe. You are never safe. So when you get a modicum of safety by following all the rules and living the right kind of life, you must hoard this safety. Arm yourself and prepare to confront anyone who threatens this battleship you have secured yourself within. Because this safety is tenuous, and the way you keep yourself safe in your right life is ensuring other people know their lives are wrong. Everyone wants to be safe, and everyone wants to know how to stay safe, and the result is this. So many people feel fundamentally unsafe because they have been told by the same people who make them casseroles when grandma dies and who are there when they are brave enough to say they need to get sober that the creator of the universe doesn't like them. You learn that God is merciful, but you don't deserve that mercy. You are not fundamentally wanted for who you are. Your body is a problem you must conquer. You can only find safety by following a version of God that looks An awful lot like whichever bully has a grasp on power in your particular church or community.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?